All right. We are live, I believe, so I am hoping that we can see some comments. So, all right. So, welcome everybody. I am Marcia Civic of Be Provided Conservation Radio, and I am here virtually with Diana Oppenheim of 4elk.org. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what's happening right here in our backyard at Point Reyes National Seashore today. Something that I was really shocked to hear about, and I'm sure you will be too. And I was just to give you a little taste of what we're gonna be talking about. I'm going to share a little video, a little 1 minute video of what's happening with our national seashore that we are part co-owners of, actually. So let me get this up.
The National Park Service has failed this ecosystem.
The industries that are polluting the land, they don't belong here.
So why are we supporting a dying industry?
If these elk aren't protected here, we are not guaranteed there's going to be Tule elk in your children's lifetime.
It's an absolute desecration of the public interest.
I'm against any proposal that would allow them to cull the elk for the ranchers. I'd rather the ranchers go than the elk go.
It is time for them not to be subsidized by us taxpayers, and it is certainly time for them to stop damaging our national seashore.
If they're not respecting the will of the people, then what are they doing?
Sorry for the jiggles. So this is what is happening to our national seashore at Point Reyes Station. So I have Diana here to talk to us about it and to fill us in with what's actually going on. So thank you for joining us, Diana.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I think like you, I've been going up to Point Reyes for many, many years, and we were talking just before we hit the live button about how it's really I was going there and I didn't even know that 30% of the park was leased to private industry. Since I didn't know, I just thought how things were. I didn't realize it was still the national park. I just figured it was ranches. I was driving through ranch land. But actually, yeah, over almost 30% of the entire national park is leased out to private industry. And it turns out that industry is completely wreaking havoc on one of the most fragile ecosystems in California, home to hundreds of endangered species. So I was pretty shocked when I found out about that.
Me too. I mentioned, we do photograph, my husband and I, out at Point Reyes. We've been doing that for years since we lived out here, and you always drive through that section of farmland, and we're like, oh, it's kind of dirty there. But then you get to Tamales Point, you see the beautiful elk, and you kind of forget about it. You don't realize what's actually happening. And thank goodness I was brought to awareness in the last year or so of what you're doing and what's actually happening. So you were a volunteer, correct? Working on the park?
Yeah, so I was volunteering at the park for about 3 years, pretty extensively. The park awarded me with Volunteer of the Year of 2018. So my name's on a plaque in their visitor center. And I was working on a coastal dune ecosystem. So I basically just worked on removing invasive species and helped protect 4 endangered species in this dune ecosystem. So on one hand, the park was awarding me for protecting the wildlife and working to better the habitat of ecosystems. And on the other hand, I learned they're just letting 30% of the park and more get completely ruined by an invasive species, actually, which are cattle.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So you've been, this was 2018, so it hasn't been that long. So can you give us an idea, kind of like what the overall status of the elk are, as far as being endangered, threatened species? Do you have that
Yeah.
information?
Yeah, so the Tule elk, they're endemic to California. So there's six species of elk, and two species of elk or subspecies are already extinct. Two are on the, kind of not doing so great, and two are doing okay, right? So like you have the Rocky Mountain elk and the Roosevelt elk, which are doing pretty well nationwide. And so you have these two subspecies of elk that, you know, are on the brink of extinction. So there are some politics around this because they're not a listed species, right? So to get listed on the endangered species list is like a whole process, and I think it's kind of challenging to get subspecies listed as endangered or not endangered, and I think it's incredibly challenging to get gaming animals listed as endangered because there's such a huge hunting desire, like a desire to hunt
Right.
gaming animals and stuff like that. So there's a lot of obstacles to get certain species listed, which isn't to say they're not doing, they're still kind of a not doing great. Um, so in the past, like sort of pre-colonization and pre-gold rush, the Tule elk, endemic to California, they numbered around 500,000. And so they would range almost the entire coast of California. And they were really central and integral to the Coast Miwok people. And a lot of indigenous tribes would kind of, they coexisted with these elk. And then when the gold rush came in here to California in the 1800s, the elk were hunted to extinction. In fact, we thought they were extinct. But in the 1870s, it was actually a rancher who had found or realized he had about a small herd on his property. And so we don't know exactly how many. Some people say 2 elk, some people say 20 elk, but it was a very small number. And so from that small herd, there's been a lot of conservation efforts, and their population now, they've been reintroduced to about 24 different herds statewide in both native and non-native habitat. And now statewide, there's about 5,000 elk. So they're at about 1% of their original population. So
Wow.
yeah. And so something to really think about with that too, I've learned, um, is this concept of genetic bottlenecking. Right? And so when you have a small herd that repopulates the entire species, the genetic diversity is really cut down. And so every single gene allele is important for their long-term survival. And so any kind of hunting is particularly bad for elk because hunters usually go for the strongest, most aesthetically, the strong alphas of the herds, which are the ones with the best genes, right? And so hunting is actually really quite bad for the long-term survival of a species who's already at risk from this genetic diversity problem. So other threats to them right now, of course, are habitat fragmentation. So they're on 24 different spaces throughout the state, but they're all in small habitats, some private land, some public land. And they were reintroduced to Point Reyes National Seashore in the 1970s. Now, Point Reyes, being a national park, has some of the most protected lands. It's some of the most protected land in the world. So this was really sort of a key thing the Park Service did, is they wanted to reestablish a healthy herd of Tule elk. And it's the only national park you can see them. It's the largest herd in the world. So there's 3 different herds in Point Reyes. And
Oh, good. I wanted to ask you that. Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm also going on, I can talk. Yeah, I'm
No,
sorry. You can
no, no.
always interrupt me and ask questions at
No,
any
we're here to hear the story of you and the elk. So yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
curious how many herds were at Point Reyes. So yep.
Yeah. So in Point Reyes, there's 3 herds. The original herd was put into Tomales Point, or which is known as the Elk preserve or the elk reserve, where you drive through the dairy industry and you go, and they're actually fenced in behind an 8-foot fence on the Pierce Point Peninsula. So on one side is the ocean, on the other side is Tomales Bay, and I think it's about a 2,000 acre peninsula, and they're a captive herd there. And there's a lot I could say about that herd, but to finish answering the question, there's 2 other free ranging herds, or free roaming herds within the park. So and they're significantly smaller. So there's a Drake's Beach herd at around 130 elk, and there's the Limantor herd. Maybe it's just under 200 elk, I'm not sure. But they're smaller herds, but they are allowed to roam free within the park.
Okay.
And though the free roaming herds are the ones, well, they both have different threats right now, just based on what's going on. So yeah.
Okay, so what is it? All 3 herds being threatened? I guess here in Point Reyes, or is it just one herd or 2 of the herds, or all 3?
Yeah. So I would say there's 2 separate issues happening at Point Reyes, both very much related to the dairy and cattle ranch industry. And one of the main, so the 4 Elk campaign, what we started to look at was the Park Service is updating their general land management plan. And so basically they are coming up with new ways to manage their land, which is a public process. So they went through they laid out 6 different alternatives, like how should we manage our land? Should we keep it as is? Should we get rid of the ranchers? Should we get rid of some of the ranchers? Should we expand the ranchers? And so they laid out 6 different alternatives and were required to do an environmental impact statement on the ranching industry to help them pick which alternative to move forward with, to stay in alignment with the mission of a national park, which is maximum protection of natural resources, to leave natural resources unimpaired for future generations. So that's the mission of a national park.
So can I back up just a second a little bit?
Yeah.
So can we give a little history of why these ranchers are there in the first place? Why are they on a national park land, that we're paying for as taxpayers and such?
Yeah, that's a really good question and such a hot debate in the issue.
Sorry. Yeah.
So no, I think this is good. And this
Yeah.
is, people are going to land different on this, what they think and what they believe.
Yeah.
So ranchers were here, like during the gold rush, there was a lot of land grants given and the ranching industry started. And so the ranchers have been here since the 1850s. And so they're sort of multi-generational family ranches. That's sort of what they were here first. When in the 1960s, the federal government was looking for, they wanted to have to start a national park. They wanted to have a national seashore and protect a coastline. And so after a lot of work on that, they chose Point Reyes National Seashore. And you can go into all the historical records of how contentious that was, of starting a national park. The ranchers fought the park tooth and nail as the National Park was being formed. But ultimately, they conceded and they sold their land to the government to become a national park. So they were actually paid about $350 million in today's dollars for their land. And in exchange, they were given 25-year leases to say, okay, we're going to give you this money, and you can spend the next 25 years continuing to ranch the land, or until you die, whatever sort of comes first.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we'll phase you out of the park, and the mission will be to restore the wilderness and have more wildlife. So that was the original intention. And then because of ranching community and ranching politics and the power that the ranching industry has, and it's just like a culturally significant history. These are people who've been in the community a long time, and a lot of people who work in the National Park Service grew up with these people. Their kids go to the same school. It's just like it's a community. And there was an amendment in the 1970s to allow ranching to extend through special use permits. And so every year, 2 years or 5 years, each ranch gets a special use permit to continue their operations. And they've been continuing operating in the national park ever since.
So they just keep getting this lease extended. Is it like 5 years at a time or 20 years at a time that they keep?
So it's not 20 years. It's usually 1, 2, or 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was there anything written in that they needed to maintain the land in a certain way to keep it on a parkland? Or are you going to get into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, one, I just want to emphasize too that the ranchers were paid millions of dollars for their land. And now it's like basically they don't pay any property taxes. All their like if you look at the market, we're paying for them. Yeah. And in such in agriculture, like outside of the park, like Sonoma and Marin County, there's plenty of other ranches that don't have the assistance of federal subsidies and no property taxes. So the market rate for all the animal units in the park are significantly under market rate. The National Park Service, aka we, pay for a lot of their infrastructure, roof repairs, legal fees, fixing the roads, fixing the fences. So we're actually the Park Service is spending a significant amount of money maintaining these working ranches. And so it's actually like the ranchers in the park really have a good deal. They were paid money to stay there, and the Park Service and we as taxpayers are paying for their operations, basically. Right. So they have a really good deal. They have a really big incentive to want to stay.
Yeah, and they're commercial. They're making profits, huge profits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but yeah.
No, it's a good point.
Yeah, that's crazy. So they're allowed to stay. So this leads us into the EIS that we were talking about, I think.
Yeah. And
somewhat.
Because in a national park, I think your question was, do they have to follow higher standards?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, they technically have to. But what we're seeing and what we know to be true is that they're not really doing that. So they're doing a pretty inadequate job. It's some of the most degraded land in California. Like the waterways, because of the ranching and how the ranching is done in the national park, has led to the waterways in Point Reyes being some of the worst in the state of California due to E. coli contamination and the like. So on paper, yes, and you'll hear a lot of people saying, oh, well, they do it at high standards, and oh, they're coexisting with wildlife, and they're these small ranches. They're not small. Okay, there's 6,000 cows in the park. That's not small.
No.
The largest farm in the park is almost as big as a concentrated animal feedlot operation, or a CAFO. They're not these old quaint, like they have modern equipment, modern facilities. They're not sustainable. They are trucking in all the equipment. They're trucking in hay and supplemental feed from the Central Valley, from all over the place, which contains invasive species in it. So these are not, the Park Service is going to portray them as a certain way because on paper, that's what it says. But if you go there and look and ask some questions, you're going to see that it's not at all how it's done there.
Yeah, when you read it, like even on the website and historical farming operations, you think of this little red barn with the little, cow sitting out there chewing on long grass, but it's like the land is barren, and based on that intro video, you can see the manure and such being, put into the water system there, and yeah.
Yeah.
It's not what's on paper for sure. So
Yeah.
that's really sad. So should we talk about the EIS more, or do you want to talk a little bit how you started to create, how you got into forming 4elk.org a little bit, and what your mission is with that?
Yeah, well, I think those kind of go hand in hand. You know, I had been working as a volunteer with wildlife restoration in the park, and I sort of had heard these rumors that the park was going to kill the elk, and I just didn't believe it because it made zero sense. Why would a national park kill these iconic wild native species that were brought back from extinction that happened to be the main visitor of the park or the main attraction of the park?
It's even on their website still, that you can see the Tule Elk while you hike to Mallas Point. I looked, anyways, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah.
Yeah, so, I was a little bit shocked, and I learned about this. I looked into it, and I found out it was true, and that there was this whole public process that was happening where the public actually has a say in this environmental impact statement and in the planning process of the general land management plan, because we all have a stake in how public lands are managed. And so what I realized was that this was being done completely behind closed doors. If somebody like myself, who's at the park all the time, invested in wildlife restoration, had no idea that this planning process was happening, probably not a lot of people know about it. And so that inspired me to reach out to some other orgs and start 4elk.org, which is a public awareness campaign, just to engage the public, to spread information, let the public know what's going on so that we can have a voice. And so I would say over the past few years, it's definitely now picking up quite a bit of momentum, but it's been a lot of groundwork. It's been a lot of talking to people, and, it was a challenge because it's so shocking and seems so horrible. It's almost hard to believe. And so there was a lot of groundwork on really being like, no, this is real. Like, I'm not making it up. I'm not like this, like, radical fanatic person. I'm
conspiracy theorist. Yeah.
And so we've done a lot of work on educating people on how the National Park Service is being managed. And now the final plan has been released, and they've completely ignored the public. Right? So there were over 7,000 comments that were submitted, and over 90% of people who replied or submitted comments oppose ranching in the National Seashore. Only, I think, 2% or something approved of ranching in the seashore.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, I just to mention too, you can look at the EIS. I'm not sure if it's Safe Point Reyes website, but I was able to obtain the EIS and look at the comments. And the comments opposing most of them are very detailed. That people are citing scientific work. It's not like they're just saying, get ranching off. They're showing some solid evidence that this isn't working. So I just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so true. And, honestly, even the park's own environmental impact statement highlights how damaging the ranches are.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, all the studies and all the documentation kind of shows that, when you have cattle in sensitive ecosystem, the ecosystem is worse off. And so the Park Service, even though the science is there, even though the public opinion is there, they still went with one of the worst plan.
Yeah, that's like Plan B, I think, in the EIS, isn't it? Yeah. Which is, if you can state it, yeah.
Yeah, so the current plan in which the park is moving forwards with, and it's not a done deal yet. We're in this last window of time to make change. So the final plan came out, and basically they're saying that they will expand the ranching industry in the seashore. They're going to allow the ranchers to diversify their operations, meaning they can bring in other livestock, they can bring in row crops, they can have bed and breakfasts, things to make them more economically viable and sustainable. Which, as we know, like if you have other livestock and other row crops, not only does that go against the mission of the national park, it also is going to attract other predators, like coyotes and that kind of stuff, who will then need to be managed. So yeah, we're really concerned about that. They're going to allow on-site processing, which is completely unprecedented in a national park, which means that all these beef and dairy ranchers are going to be allowed. I mean, potentially this could mean on-site slaughterhouses, mobile slaughterhouses in a national park. And they're planning to extend or hand over 20-year leases to the ranching families. And the other thing of note is that they're going to change the rule that says it has to be family run. Because a lot of the ranchers right now, the only way they can continue ranching is if their children take over the ranching industry, so it stays in the family.
Kind of grandfathered in or whatever it's called, yeah.
Even though a lot of ranchers have already passed to somebody else or sold to somebody else, I'm not sure how that worked. But basically, this will be a more official way to say anybody can ranch here. So because a lot of the ranchers' children, I guess, I mean, I've kind of heard this, so but it seems like they don't want to take over the ranch. And so anybody can have that ranch now.
Wow.
And so that's like a huge shift from the original intention to keep the family farms going.
Right. That's really sad. So do you know any of these ranchers? Have you talked to them? Are there any ranchers that are willing to move to a different location, or are you seeing a lot of conflict when you talk to them?
So it's been challenging to talk, especially intimately, with any of the ranchers. So they haven't been very communicative with me or for Elk, but I have had some conversations, and I've read their comments because it's public information, and I've read some quotes from them from articles and the like, and I've had some conversations, and each ranching family is on a spectrum of how for or against the plan they are. No rancher on the park is for leaving their business, and that makes total sense to me. Like, no one would be like, okay, well, I'll just leave my life and move somewhere else, right? So I totally get that they want to stay there, and it is their livelihood. However, all the ranchers, a reminder that they were already paid for this land and were told to leave, right? And so they should honor and respect that. And two, almost all the ranchers have businesses outside of the national park anyway. So this isn't their only jobs. This isn't their only ranch. Many of them have multiple ranches outside of the park, multiple businesses outside of the park. So the owners are not going to be out of luck. I think there's more concern with the ranch workers. So they employ about 60 employees within the park, and those workers would be out of a job. And so that to me is the one thing where I'm like, okay, when we phase out ranching, we need to do it in a way that takes care of the workers and makes it a just transition. And I do not want to pay the ranchers again because they already got paid. Okay. So, but as we get to phase them out, I think there needs to be a really delicate plan to take care of the workers and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and is there any plan in action? Was there any alternative written up? I didn't read the entire EIS, but were there any plans like that for any economic help to because Point Reyes isn't that big of an area, that populated, and so losing a job would be really hard to like uproot and go somewhere else, I'm sure. So yeah.
Well, the one alternative that the park could have chosen would be to phase out the ranchers, and it would be within a 5-year time period.
Okay.
And so since the park didn't make that their preferred alternative, they didn't really flush out what that 5-year plan could look like.
Yeah.
So I think that would be like an opportunity to do it as best as possible and to figure out a really good way to take care of the people, right? Because I want to protect wildlife, and then that's like probably my highest priority. But I don't want to put anyone out. So
Yeah, it is.
I
It's
think
a
it can be done
balance.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and even at your rally that you had, what was that now, just 2 or 3 weeks ago at Point Reyes, you were on a farm and you had different speakers, and I believe you have a video of this as well on your website, or we could share it afterwards too. But I think one of the women speaking was talking about converting to a plant-based farm. You know, I mean, that's an alternative too, I would think, to start. You know, she helps people, ranchers, convert from dairy to soy or something like that. And yeah. Anyways, that's
Yeah.
just.
I'm not sure if
I
it's
mean, there
just
are yeah. Sorry, yeah. I don't, but
yeah, I don't want to misquote that, but
yeah,
yeah,
I
so
don't
it's
either.
Miyoko Shinner. So
Yep.
she is the owner of, or the creator of, Miyoko's cheese, which is a plant-based dairy alternative, and it's
Right.
a multi-million-dollar business now. It's literally amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I am vegan, and I just like that doesn't mean that I'm running a vegan campaign. We have vegans
Sure.
on our team, we have non-vegans on our team. Like, to me, it makes sense to be vegan, but also this is way beyond a vegan issue. This is public
Right.
lands, this is wildlife, this is climate crisis, this is biodiversity crisis. So
Right. Right.
I'm not trying to tell people how to eat. But when I
Yeah.
became vegan 10 years, like, when I was like toying around with veganism 10 years ago, vegan cheese was disgusting. And
I did that too. Yeah.
and Miyoko's cheese is like actually delicious. Like,
Yeah.
it's really amazing. And her business model is really amazing. And she actually is, I mean, the dairy industry is a dying industry.
Yeah.
It's very similar to corn. The only reason why it's in existence right now is due to heavy, heavy federal subsidies. And there's a huge, like, there's too much milk in our country. There's milk being dumped all over the place. I think the two biggest milk producers last year went bankrupt.
Oh, I
So
didn't
the
know that.
industry is completely tanking. And that means that they're really dependent on federal subsidies. So one thing that Miyoko is doing is saying, like, plant-based milk alternatives, it's a growing industry. We are the solution to a lot of climate change problems. We don't contribute to it. And she's actually creating a program to help convert dairy farms who struggle into a really healthy, viable, plant-based milk operation. And so
Yeah, that was
she's,
my point. There's so many, that's not the only alternative, but that's a good, step in a solution in this. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you again. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
So, yeah, we have Eileen came on and she said she was at the protest and she mentioned that you do great work and she wants to know what we can do next.
Well, thanks, Eileen. Yeah, so we are right now, the final decision came out just over a month ago, and it's already been, so it had a minimum of 30 days before the parks could sign it and it turned into a final plan. Well, that's been delayed because I don't know if I can attribute it 100% to the work we've all been doing, but I think it definitely has helped. So the plan has been delayed in its signing until the California Coastal Commission kind of does some supplemental reviews and make sure that it all checks out. So we have now, we think, a couple more months until that happens.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really good news for us because that gives us more time to keep the pressure going, to make sure we build the movement and contact all the every representative we can, every big environmental group we can, and just keep the public pressure going. And so a lot of the stuff, so we'll keep protesting.
Good.
If you're in the Bay Area, we're going to be doing a protest on Friday at Jared Huffman's office in San Rafael. It'll be COVID safe. You wear a mask. There's space to be social distance. So we're protesting his office because he's a staunch supporter of killing the Tule Elk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Eileen, she made sure to be present at the Coastal Commission. Awesome. Thank you. It's working,
Yes. Yeah.
people are listening to us.
Thanks,
And
Eileen.
yeah. And so we need to keep documenting and we have people doing documentation on the ground about, what we consider to be illegal and a breach of public interest in the national park, collecting evidence for any lawsuits we might have, and just keeping the public pressure going because they're really feeling the pressure. And politicians and these big agencies, when they're in the public eye, they have to make better choices. When they're not in the public eye, they can do whatever they want and they know it's not going to be questioned. And so all the awareness we're doing, write letters to the editor, write your Congress people, contact any environmental orgs and get them to sign on to it. All that stuff has been really effective.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
So, and can you explain who is Jared Huffman? Is he the representative in the area there? What is his title?
So he's a congressman for District 2, which is all of Northern California, including Point Reyes. And he is known to be an environmental leader, and he's on the climate task force and all this stuff. And he knows, I believe he knows he's on the wrong side of this, but because he wants, these are all I think.
Yeah, your opinion or your thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. He wants Dianne Feinstein's seat. And in order to get her seat, he needs to have the ag support. And so he is really adamant about supporting these small family ranchers. Small family ranchers.
I was going to say they're not that small anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
so he is, he's really heavily supportive of this plan. And, I actually just met with him yesterday with a small crew of people. And again, it was just him basically saying a lot of lies of, and this sort of pro ranch propaganda, these, the small family farms. And, so I don't think he's going to change his mind unless people in his specific district start speaking up, because he thinks that his district is supportive of this plan to keep the elk, or to keep the ranchers in the park and shoot the elk. So he keeps saying that over and over, I know my constituents really well. They really love these ranches. They really want them to stay. You're a small, you and your group are a small segment of the population. You don't, and I'm like, okay.
That's crazy though. If 90% of the comments were against, wow.
Yeah. So I think we just have to keep the pressure on him.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. So is there a way where we? Oh, I'm sorry. There was a delay. I didn't mean to overlap. What did you say? I'm sorry.
Just calling him out on his hypocrisy.
Yeah.
You say you're a climate leader, yet you're supporting this plan that is going to exacerbate climate change. All the science in the park that the park came out with says it's the leading cause of greenhouse gas emissions. It's the leading cause of biodiversity loss in the park. It's the leading cause of water pollution, of ocean pollution. They're killing a native species to protect the ranchers. They're planting invasive species in the park. So when you say you're a climate leader, yet this gem of a seashore in your own backyard, you're just throwing under the bus, it feels like a betrayal, actually. And I think he needs to hear from more people.
Yeah.
Gets that we're not a small minority of his constituents. We're actually the majority. I believe that.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, and I'm glad that, the word is getting out there. You started, I think your first rally at Point Reyes a while ago started with 25 people or so. And then you had close to 200 or 300 during the last one. That's good. You're getting out
the
there.
first meeting was actually in my living room in San Francisco. It was under 10 people.
Yeah.
Let's rally for the elk. And
we
all drinking tea, eating chocolate chip cookies. What do we do?
Well, that's good. That's where it all starts, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. In the last action, we had 288 people. We took over the largest ranch in the national park. So that felt pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. And you have a video of that too. And I will, to whoever's listening to this, we'll post links to those. And there is also on the 4elk.org website a video of Jared Huffman, a 3-minute long video. I don't know if we should play it here or not, but of him showing his true environmental colors on that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think
please
that might
watch
be a
that.
good place to, yeah.
Yeah.
It's up to you if you want to show it. I think it's 3 minutes. We've kind of been chatting a while, but
Yeah.
it's a good video, and it basically shows some of the most right-wing anti-environmentalist Congress people, like Representative Bishop from Utah, like congratulating Jared Huffman on his choice in this matter.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah, I mean, I can play it as we lead out too, but I don't have any questions from any listeners right now. So it is lunchtime, so sometimes we get questions afterwards. So when we go through, like when this is posted, we can I can share with you, or you can go to this live link and answer any questions that may come up afterwards, if that's all right, on the Facebook page.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone can reach out to me. My email is action@4elk.org. So if you email me or go to the website and submit a question, or I'm happy to answer what I can or send you resources. I'll also try to check the link and get some, if any questions come up on the comments.
Okay, great. And if I get any that that I can't answer, which is likely, so I can send your way as well. So to reiterate how we can help, we can write the congressman, try to involve more environmental organizations, some of the bigger ones. Is there anything else that we can do?
I think those are some big ones. Letters to the editor, and just really talking about it with your friends. We have some really amazing, like we have an 8-minute video that is done. It was done by a National Geographic film crew. It's a gorgeously done video. So I think sometimes when just like sharing that around, so people can just in a quick, if they have 10 minutes, they can watch this video and just spread the word that way. The more people who know about it, the better right now. Share it on social media. Tag, if you're sharing it on social media, maybe tag Jared Huffman, tag the Park Service, that kind of thing.
Good
like
idea.
All those little ways to just nudge people.
Yeah, get it in their environment or their social area. So Kathy, Tommy, she's Tommy online. She asks, are you posting the protest on Friday? I don't think you mentioned a time Friday that you guys are meeting.
Yeah. So Friday, October 23rd at 4 p.m.
Okay.
So we'll be outside of his office in San Rafael. I can't remember the address off the top of my head, but I'll maybe give a link to the invite on Facebook to you, and you can post that. Friday at 4 p.m.
Okay, great. And are you doing any more rallies on the farms out there or on the ranches? Are you going to try to do another one?
Yes, I'm sure. Especially now that we have even a little more time, we'll do probably a few more actions and rallies. Definitely.
That's great. Yeah, I would love to be there in person and do that this time. Also, as far as reaching out to people, is there like a concentrated website where all these people are listed and who to contact, like through the Park Service? I know people probably know how to look up their representatives, but any other people they should know about? Do you have a list of those available?
Yeah, 4Elk website under the action tab, there's like a whole list, and even like some sample templates for if you call or write, that kind of stuff. So in the contact info.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate all the work you're doing and bringing awareness, and I'm going to do my best to share this information as much as I can and get the word out there. You're welcome. So thank you for all you do, and I hope that soon we can meet in person. And and we're heading out to Point Reyes area actually November. We usually head out there around my birthday time. That's usually when we do photography and try to get the elk and the sunrise. And it just makes me really sad that, this is happening. So I want to...
It's bittersweet. The elk have been through so much. They've been through near extinction.
Yeah.
They are...
just coming back.
So it's been, and they're so majestic, as you know, and you hear them bugle and you see them running, and
Yep.
running down the hills and the cliff sides, and it's like so beautiful, and it's quite bittersweet.
It is. It's very, yeah. I just can't imagine that area without them, and I hope we can do our best to make sure that they stay in a healthy way. So, I don't think I ever asked you, but how many elk? We talked about herd numbers, but how many elk are actually out there? Do you know the numbers about?
There's a census count every year, and there's probably about 650 elk, but it might be significantly less now because the elk, of course, up in Tamales Point are not doing so well, and they're kind of dying in
Yeah.
higher numbers right now, which is like the other battle we're trying to fight, is to get the fences down and get the park to supply water to these elk.
So it's the Tamales elk that are having water issues. They can't get to drinking water.
Yeah,
So,
because they're fenced in and there's no perennial streams, and the Park Service says there's water, but of course
maybe
we've
like
done
for a
we
week out of the year or something. Yeah.
yeah, not to sustain a herd of 400 animals, and we
No.
have people on the ground every day trying to go to where the water sources are according to the park, and we're not finding the water, and we're finding dead elk, sadly.
Uh, that's
So
sad. Yeah. That, yeah, I saw some of those images in the intro video that we did. So, well, thank you so much. And I recommend everybody to go and check out these videos that Diana was talking about. There's a great video on her website, Betrayal of, well, the topic isn't all that great, but it is a good quality video of Betrayal of Point Reyes. But it really shows visually what's happening there. And you can see the lands that the elk are living on and how biodiverse they are versus where these ranchers are and how dead it is. It's amazing, and you can really see what's happening. So, Eileen was asking one last question. Can we provide food and water?
um
Is that
so so we
legal?
have it's not legal.
Okay.
um we had a crew provide water, an
Okay.
emergency water drop, to the elk, and risked legal consequence in order to do that. So we did get water into the elk, and a few days later, the Park Service removed all the water.
They
So
did.
yeah,
Oh,
they did. So
this is
yeah,
cruel.
you can at your own risk, um, but it's yeah, the Park Service took ours down. So
Wow. Wow, and it's hard, with a small group of people with that many elk to bring in actually enough water, I would think, to sustain them for any period of time. Or do they not drink that much water? Can they get some water from grass, I wonder, from
well,
what they
yeah, a
eat?
lot of their water, so some of their water does come from forage, but when
Hmm.
there's a high level drought, the plants get dry too, so there's not as much water content in the
Yeah.
grass or the shrubs. Um, and the old stock ponds have largely dried up, and then there's a slew of other seeps and streams and that are apparently there, and there are a few, but they're kind of like trickling mud puddles and very low quality water, and
Yeah.
usually down like steep cliffs. And so the elk, they can't stay there all day by the water. It's like kind of a trek. You have to kind of trek in, traverse some sort of dangerous terrain, get a little bit of water if it's there, and then traverse back out. So it's not like an area where they can just sit and be by the water.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's another reason why it's like not an adequate water source for all 400 elk that are out at the point. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's sad. Well, I suggest everybody go take a look and get the gist of the EIS and the options that are out there and watch some of these videos and stay in touch with you and these other organizations. And we'll do our best to
Yeah.
keep fighting
And
this
go out
fight.
there if you can, and see the beauty of it too, because
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I have to really try to do that because I've been fighting this for so long. I'm like, I want to remember why I'm fighting so hard, and like to
Hmm.
go out there and like go on a nature hike, and yeah, visit the elk and just like be in awe of their beauty too. Because that is really what fuels me, is like, this is what I'm fighting for. I'm not fighting against all these things.
Right.
I'm like fighting for the health of the ecosystem. I'm fighting for the elk. So um, get out there and do your nature hikes too.
I agree. Yeah, I know. It's one of my most favorite places in the world. So I really love it there. So yeah. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Diana. Yeah, I appreciate your time today. And Everybody, thank you for joining, and we'll answer any questions that come up, after the fact. So thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Oh.